Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode opening up here, another live stream to talk about our favorite team, the Arizona Cardinals. Of course, I'm joined here by my good buddies here. We got Mythic AZ and then Joe, the Cardinal Rule. What's up, man? How you been and how you doing?
I'm good, man. It's been a minute since we've done anything together, but we did a couple live stream, more than a couple back in the day. But yeah, man, it's good to be with you. And Dustin, this is the first time we've done anything together, so it's good to meet you. And I'm really looking forward to talking some Cardinals stuff.
Absolutely. Mythic, man, how are you doing today?
Man, doing good. Cannot complain. It's raining in Arizona for the first time in forever.
Yep.
So can never complain when that happens.
It's wild. So I was coming from out of town, and of course that's exactly the one time it rains in Arizona delayed my flight, and then I had to deal with traffic coming back home. So it was rough, man. It's rough, but yeah, let's dive into it. We got a lot to talk about here today. Obviously, Cardinals related. So if you guys haven't done so already, do me a huge favor, smack up that like button. Do it for the algorithm, and let's get started. First, we have the topics here at the bottom. We're going to be diving into all that. But first, we want to talk about some breaking news that happened in the world of the Arizona Cardinals. And is a guy that I'm excited for. Obviously, Greg Dortch ended up getting a one-year contract here with the Arizona Cardinals. I want to kind of go around the round table and just get a feel on how you guys are feeling about this. Let's first start off here with Joe. How are you feeling about Greg Dortch coming back as an Arizona Cardinal?
Well, we talked about this before we went live, and someone in this round table here was talking about Greg Dortch before he was popular to talk about, right? Yeah. I saw him in the preseason, his first year with us, and he made some really nice catches, really nice plays, and knew that he had been kind of a guy who'd been on practice squads and stuff. And just, he looked really solid in the preseason games. And I'm one of those people who watches the preseason games, even though it doesn't really matter. So I was talking about him before. And so for me, obviously it's really excited to be a guy I was kind of on the ground floor with in terms of being a believer in him, but not just about me, right? But like, when you look at what he's done over the last couple of years, like just the kinds of plays he's made consistently, he's elusive. He's been our best, slot receiver, and we have a guy that I love, Rondale Moore, who hasn't lived up to, the hopes and expectations. So this is a guy who just keeps performing when they get him out there. I just hope that they commit to playing him more, because despite the fact that he's made so many good plays and he just produces, he doesn't end up on the field enough. It seems like he's only playing when other people are injured. And I feel like he has earned and deserves to be a starting slot receiver in the NFL. And I hope it's with us.
I agree. Mythic.
Absolutely.
How are your thoughts, man?
Man, I love it. Right. Like Joe said, he's been the best slot receiver we have. And we took a guy in the second round in Rondale Moore, and he just hasn't panned out for whatever reason. And Greg Dortch just seems like he's outshined every single person he's been in competition with, or at least in my eyes, dating back to Andy Isabella in the preseason. He kept up, if not outperformed him. And now we have Rondale Moore, slot receiver, taken in the second round. When Greg Dortch gets the opportunity, he makes plays. And I feel like, honestly, he was Kyler Murray's most trusted target outside of Trey McBride until that final game with Michael Wilson where they kind of clicked. I feel like Greg Dortch was like the most reliable player outside of Trey McBride. I wish, just like Joe said, that he got more playing time, and hopefully going into next season with another off season with this new regime, that he does get more. action going forward. So that's my only hope going into next year. But I love this. Love the signing.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of you. It's very unfortunate, man, that he has to wait for somebody to get hurt. And I've said this before, outlandish things here, especially in the Twitter world, or I guess now X world. But yeah, I've said this before. Greg Dortch greater than Rondo Moore, and then hopefully it continues to hopefully be right, because I love being right. But yeah, I really want to see him here a lot more on the field. And we'll see. Good for him. Congratulations to him. Let's move over to the topics that we want to dive into today. We got Hollywood Brown. We got surprise cuts around the NFL, Cardinals needs, free agent targets, and then 2024 expectations. Let's first start off with Hollywood Brown, shall we? Now, the biggest topic about this is, are we going to re-sign him? There was a rumor that came out that said the Cardinals are probably going to bring him back on a one-year deal. And I know a month ago I said, do not bring this guy back. I'm done with him. But now that wide receiving free agent market is no longer there anymore. It's dried up. So I want to kind of get a gauge on where you guys are standing here with Marquise Hollywood Brown. Do we bring him back? Do we not bring him back? Let's start here with Mythic.
So my expectation and my hope is always a one-year deal. And the franchise tag was also something that's been thrown around, but that money is probably going to be way too high. But on a one-year deal, I don't think I would mind that necessarily. But the price tag is what matters with Hollywood Brown the most. In the first half of the season, he performed insanely with Josh Dobbs at quarterback. Had a couple touchdowns that were overthrown, shot to the sideline. He just never had the opportunity to make the play. But the performance was there. And then he had lingering injuries going on in the second half of the season with Kyler Murray never clicked, which I think is due to injuries. But you have to understand that if you're on the field, you have to put up numbers and you have to perform. So the expectation should be there regardless. But I love the idea of bringing Hollywood Brown back, especially if we're able to land someone with the fourth overall pick. That just adds more dynamic to the wide receiver room. And then bringing Greg Dortch back too. You'd have a complete roster and a complete room. So I would love to have him back on a one-year deal, just kind of prove it more than anything. Multi-year does kind of scare me. But a one-year deal, I'm all for.
1 year. All right, Joe, what are your thoughts on Hollywood Brown?
Yeah, I agree with Dustin in terms of, a 1 year deal at the right price. And, that people have been talking about 12 million is kind of the number that's been thrown out there, I think, by PFF because of such a deep wide receiver class in the draft. It seems like maybe the free agency market is going to be kind of cold this year for receivers. So I thought he would make more than that. When we saw what happened with Christian Kirk, a receiver who isn't elite, but is good, making crazy money that year. But I think the market's going to be different this year. So I think 1 year deal may very well be likely. Now, in terms of Hollywood as a player, I think he's been miscast as a number one receiver. It's kind of that X receiver. But there's a role that they haven't really used him in that if they were to use him in, he could be really effective. And it's that deep go route, crazy Tyreek Hill speed, take the top off of a defense receiver. I'm not saying he's quite as fast as Tyreek Hill, but he is in that top 1% of fastest players in the NFL. And when you've got a guy that fast who is skilled, he is absolutely a skilled receiver. If you get him in that role where he's the guy who's going deep, the safeties have to kind of back up, have to play honest, and that opens things up for Trey McBride underneath. Now, because of the lack of depth and true number one in our receiving core, when he's been healthy, has been playing our best outside wide receiver. But if you get someone like, I don't know, Marvin Harrison Jr., or Rome Odunze or someone like that to be your X, right? And then you get Michael Wilson playing that kind of big, kind of move the chains kind of possession receiver. And then you get Hollywood Brown running deep. It opens up everything underneath, because even if that guy isn't getting thrown to all the time, you can't let him get a free release, right? So you have to cover him. So if they can bring him back at the right price and they can put him in that role that I think is his best role, that could really make a big difference in this offense. So I am up for bringing him back in that role at the right price in a year when we do have cap space.
So let me ask you guys both this question here. I think we could all agree that 1 year deal is the most suitable thing for us here as Cardinal fans, and just kind of looking at the cap and being, knowledgeable about that. But do you think he has a market for another team to potentially come up here and Super Bowl? Now, yes, we can franchise tag him. That's the truth. I'm not sure the Cardinals will do that, but do you think that there will be another team, like maybe, let's say, for example, the Panthers, that might throw a bag at him, just kind of similar to Christian Kirk, that he kind of swooped up from under us and he's no longer available because somebody threw the bag at him? Do you think he is he's probably the best wide receiver left right now. Him, or maybe you could say Calvin Ridley, just kind of really depending on who you're really going for. Do you think that there's going to be another team kind of coming up here and swooping on us? Let's go Joe first, and then we'll go Mythic.
If you asked me that 3 or 4 months ago, I would have said he's going to get a multi-year deal, and the whole prove it deal is wishful thinking. But as things have kind of started to come into focus about this draft class and how good this and how deep the receivers are in this draft class, I think a lot of those teams that would be looking to spend a bag on the receiver are going to look at the draft and say, no, you know what? Let's go draft someone. Obviously get that 4 to 5 years of cost controlled, contract on the rookie deal. So I lean towards thinking there's not going to be a huge market for him like I would have thought months ago.
Okay. Mythic, what are your thoughts?
I'm in a very similar boat because during the trade deadline, there was a team that resurfaced, like the Carolina Panthers, for example, who were interested in Hollywood Brown. And who knows what they were willing to give up, right? Because it's receiver on their last year, potential bag afterwards. But I think the market has dried up, especially with after the combine. Just this class is so deep in a lot of positions, and receiver just happens to be one of those. And there's a lot of players. And why spend $14-15 million to bring in Hollywood Brown on a multi-year deal when you can go draft your own and kind of have someone homegrown? I feel like that's the option a lot of places are going to go. And the teams that have top cap space, like the Commanders are number 1, the Titans are 2, the Patriots 3, Texans 4, Bears 5. Like there's 2 out of the 5 teams that would probably throw a bag at him. But at the same time, I think the market is dried up. And Michael Pittman, I feel like if he were to hit the market, would have had a market. Tyler Boyd would have had a market. T. Higgins, not Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd is a free agent, though.
Yep.
But T. Higgins would have had a market. Hollywood Brown, I feel like, just won't have that, which will bring him back to Arizona ultimately on like a 1-year contract. I think the dry market is what's going to bring him back to Arizona.
Okay. I mean, that only benefits us at the end of the day. And we need another wide receiver because right now where we're standing, we got Greg Dortch, hallelujah. We got Rondale Moore, Michael Wilson, and then I believe Zach Pascal still under contract with the Arizona Cardinals, I think for 1 more year. So, okay. All right, let's move on here to the next one here. Let's talk about surprise cuts. Now, this is going to be in the entirety of the NFL. We saw a lot of crazy things happen. I don't know if you guys are in the same boat. I have never seen so much star-studded people just get completely cut, peace out, do away with. It's absolutely wild. Now, let's talk about that here. Surprise cuts, and everybody in the chat, let us know here on what your guys' thoughts are as well. What is the biggest surprise cut that you've seen so far? And then we'll kind of segue that into the Cardinals. Now, this doesn't have to be somebody that you want the Cardinals to go for, or if it is, cool, no worries. We'll talk about that. So let's start off with Mythic, and then we'll go with Joe.
For me, it's Justin Simmons. It happened this morning. I woke up. It's the safety freaking purge right now. So everyone's just getting cut right now. You have players like Jordan Poyer, et cetera, et cetera. Justin Simmons, all-pro safety, Pro Bowler, one of the best safeties in the league still, probably top 6. I would have him like 5 or 6. Some team's going to land this guy and not have to pay like anything for him. The Broncos are going to take that contract on, and the team is going to land Justin Simmons. That was the most surprising to me because of just the caliber he is. Like the Bills also had a purge too, but they were $40 million over the cap. The Broncos are just rebuilding and just parting ways with everybody and anybody they can. So I would say Justin Simmons. The Cardinals, obviously not a realistic landing spot for him, but insane.
Yeah, I agree. Joe, what are your thoughts?
I think Tre'Davious White is one that a lot of people have talked about, the cornerback, right? And I know there's been some injuries and such. Cornerback is a position we'll talk about, in some of the upcoming topics in terms of the need. But yeah, and Robert Moore, got Jordan Poyer, right? The entire Buffalo secondary. That was kind of surprising. But safety apocalypse, as I'm calling it, right? All those safeties, right? Getting cut. It's crazy. And certainly we're going to talk about that a little bit more, so I'll kind of save that for then. But I think, White is an interesting one. I think he's going to have some demand. There's a number of cornerbacks on the market, which is good for the Cardinals.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think both of those guys that you named are very, very surprising here for just the NFL in general. Just absolutely such a weird time. And there's so much teams that are completely over the cap that they kind of had to do away with what they did, but just absolutely wild. Now, I guess I kind of piggyback on what you guys said. I'll go Justin Simmons as well. That's a huge name that kind of just gotta get cut out of nowhere. But let's dive into exactly what you guys are talking about here, and that's pertaining to all the safeties that were pretty much cut in this free agency market. We got Justin Simmons, Jordan Poyer, Jamal Adams, which I don't think he's that great anymore, but Kevin Byard, Condre Diggs, Jenkins, and then Eddie Jackson as well. So this is going to segue us into our very own safety, and that is none other than Budda Baker. We all want to kind of talk about this, but don't really want to, but it's a discussion piece to talk about because Budda Baker is on I guess he's got 1 year left on his contract. There was a trade request that happened, I believe it was last year. We ended up giving him some money. It seemed like that kind of died down. But one thing that kind of worries me is the fact that he's on a 1 year deal, and not just that, but he's got no guaranteed money at all this year. So that kind of worries me. What are your guys' thoughts here on Budda Baker? Do you think anything's going to happen with Budda? Do you think we're going to see him release as another safety in the NFL? Let's start off with Joe, and then we'll go with Mythic.
This is interesting. I don't think they're going to release him. I think he, in terms of what he brings to the locker room, is very valuable. I think they would have already done that if they were going to. But I actually tweeted about this earlier today, and actually a couple tweets, a tweet and then a response, that, I think what we're seeing right now illustrates that Monty Ossenfort knows what he's doing, because last year, there was this, kind of the trade demand, and, Budda wanted an extension. And Monty kind of didn't go with that, but he found a way to make it work with some bonus money to kind of satisfy Budda in the short run. And, general managers, they know this, they know how to read the tea leaves, and they know kind of trends. And I imagine he had an idea that there'd be a lot of safety cuts potentially. I don't think these things catch, astute personnel people by surprise like they do us. So I think he had an idea what was going on, and I think he played that very smart. And now, if you're Budda Baker's agent, you understand the landscape, and you know that you can't play hardball right now. It's basic economics, supply and demand. There are too many safeties out there on the free agency market. And Budda Baker, like a lot of those guys, are going to get 1 year prove-it deals under the market, or less than what they would have been making. And they're going to, if Budda Baker tried to force his way out, he would be making less than what he's going to be making on this last year of his deal. Like he's making, compared to what a lot of these guys that are in free agency are going to be making in there just trying to get a job, he's going to be making a good salary this year. And a lot of those guys are going to be on 1 year deals. So next year, when he's a free agent, he's going to have to compete with them again, right? Those guys that got the 1 year deal. So if you're the Cardinals, and this is something I tweeted, and you want to sign Budda to an extension with maximum leverage on your side as the Cardinals, right now is the time to do it, because he doesn't have much negotiating power with the flooded market.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this, Mythic? And I do kind of have something to talk about this, but go ahead.
Perfect. I don't think he's going anywhere. And if he does, it'll probably be at the trade deadline over anything, because he is on a 1 year contract right now, and there is no guaranteed money, and there's no long-term future for him here. So unfortunately, that's going to result in either Budda testing free agency, or we come to an extension, which I don't necessarily see that happening either, because the safety market is insane right now, as he just said, and it's kind of over inflated. But I don't think Budda's going anywhere. I don't think there's any room for concern right now. Or at least, hopefully, because I want Budda to be a Cardinal for life, but obviously the money has to be right, and it has to be right from a business standpoint too. If it's not the right business move, it won't be done.
So I agree with both of you, but talk about, I guess, one of the guys that has the most, I guess, do you think Budda Baker has still a lot of trade value after this whole safety situation went down, or do you think that whole trade value went down? I mean, Budda Baker's he's still producing at a pretty high level. Do you think the Arizona Cardinals could potentially still trade him? Because releasing is not an option for me, or at least if I was a GM, that would not be an option. Now, granted, yes, the Arizona Cardinals can save a grip ton of money, and I believe looking here at over the cap, regardless if it's pre-June or post-June 1st, it's still a savings of 15.1 mil, which is a lot of money, but they do have a dead money of 3.9 mil. So do you guys think that he's got any value in terms of being traded? Or do you think that kind of the safety situation that's happening has kind of completely made that move? Let's start off with Mythic.
I believe he would have a market, but it probably wouldn't be as much as we would hope to get back for a player of his caliber, because Kevin Byard got traded last year for, I believe, Terrell Edmonds and a 4th round pick. So Budda Baker, I could see us fetching like a second. That's like the max is a 2nd round pick, but I I don't see a team just forking over a second round pick unless you're contending in safeties, like a dire position, like you desperately need a safety. I don't think he has a market that we would hope for necessarily. I think it'd be kind of disappointing. But I think there is a team that would trade for him, but just we wouldn't get in return what we would expect from a Buda Baker caliber player.
Joe, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm not as optimistic about his trade market right now as Dustin is, because when you just again, the pure economics of it, and when I say economics, I don't mean money, I mean supply and demand of safeties as free agents. And anytime you ask a question about a trade, you have to put yourself in the seat of the other side that would make the trade. It takes two to make the trade. And okay, so if we want to trade, but what if you're a GM in any other team in the NFL and you want a safety? Do you want to trade a draft pick for Buda, who's a great safety, when you can go after a Pro Bowl safety who's been cut, right? A couple Pro Bowl safeties. So I now maybe if those guys get snatched up, maybe there's a team, but I think that the teams that don't get those guys are just going to deal with the second tier or draft a safety. You that second round pick, you trade for Buda, you can get a good safety, one of the better safeties in this draft class second round. Not saying he's Buda, but you have him cost controlled, right? Yeah. So I just think because of that market, thinking about putting yourself in the shoes of the general manager who has to be on the other side of kind of pulling the trigger on that deal, I have a hard time seeing much of a market in the current climate.
It's wild, because I still kind of remember the trade of Jamal Adams, what he went for. It's crazy. It's crazy different in the market that we're living in right now. So hopefully Buda Baker stays. But if Monty Austin-Fort decides to do something, obviously we're going to have to kind of accept it and move along and see exactly what happens when we go from there. So let's move on here to the next topic that we have to talk about, and it's going to be Cardinals needs. Now, this is just position-wise. Me and Mythic, we chopped it up all offseason. So I'm going to start off with you, Joe, here. Yeah. And I want to kind of get one or two. Heck, if you want to throw three in there, what are the biggest needs you see for the Arizona Cardinals heading into free agency, which starts next week?
Okay. The biggest need, in my opinion, most of the biggest needs are on the defensive side, right? I do think they need a little offensive line help. They need a starting left guard. I don't know. I feel comfortable getting that out of the draft. You can draft that guy and develop them, but you probably want to get a free agent left guard. Right tackle, you can work with Beacham or a rookie if you need to, I think. But I think a left guard is kind of up there. I think a number one cornerback is a big need. Now, maybe you can try to draft that and develop that. But I think, and this will get into 2024 expectations, I think they don't want to be having to develop that number one cornerback right now. I think they want a guy who can play, and there are some good ones on the free agency market. So I think a cornerback is a need, but I think you need it to be a starting outside cornerback. You don't just need depth. You can draft the depth. You've got guys you can develop. They need a starting cornerback. And then, I think the other need is defensive interior line. Mm-hmm. That was a patchwork of bubble marginal players, retreads, and guys like Lecky Fotu playing significant minutes. They need some depth there on the interior defensive line. There's other positions they need help at, but a lot of those other positions they need, you can address in the draft more readily, I think. But those would be, to me, left guard, defensive interior line, and cornerback are the three that I'd look at in free agency.
They're pretty much okay. Go ahead.
That is exactly my three. That has been my three for the longest. It's a starting left guard. It is a starting corner one and a starting defensive lineman. That is why I'm pushing Christian Wilkins, now Tre'Davious White, and then whoever at left guard. Right? We need a veteran and someone who can come in here and actually produce day one and not develop. Those are exactly my three, and that's why I'm pushing Christian Wilkins to Arizona, Tre'Davious White, and then obviously we need a left guard. And then I said I'm cool with Froholt at center. Those are my three as well.
And maybe just drafting one. Maybe see.
Yeah.
A lot of people forget about John Gaines too. There was a lot of high praise about John Gaines that we got in this last draft, and he got hurt, unfortunately. They said he played guard. He plays maybe center as well. You never know. Maybe he can be developed to be the starter for the Arizona Cardinals, but we'll kind of wait and see how that shakes out. But when it comes down to it, I think we can all kind of agree on the same thing. If I were to put one on top, just to be a little different from you, Joe, I'm going to say the interior defensive line. But I do agree, corner. If we can get, Christian Wilkins, Mythic's guy, I think that would be absolutely fantastic for the Arizona Cardinals. We've been longing to get a interior dog for quite some time. Now, yes, I get it, JJ Watt. And I really get it. JJ Watt, Mike. Okay, I remember. But I'm talking about some guy that we have like for longevity. We didn't know when JJ Watt was going to go. I always kind of felt like he was always, 1 foot out the door, and I don't know. He was always great for the Cardinals, which is fantastic. But that would be a huge asset for the Arizona Cardinals if they did get it. But I do also want to throw some money in the cornerback situation as well, because although we got some talented young guys, whether you want to say Keitrell Clark, but Garrett Williams is a guy that me and Mythic are very, very high on. I'm not sure if Antonio Hamilton will come back, or at least I hope not, because I don't want to do another Band-Aid fix. I want to pay somebody, and then hopefully Garrett Williams can develop into becoming that guy. And maybe Keitrell Clark can be something for the Arizona Cardinals. So, and then somebody that me and you were really, really high on, Mythic, is Starling Thomas V, right? The fifth, or whatever his name is. Great. I think we ended up getting him on a waiver wire claim, and that guy actually shake up to be pretty darn good for the Arizona Cardinals. Hopefully he can blossom into becoming a starter for our defense, but we'll have to kind of wait and see how that shakes out. So, all right. I don't think there's any differentness going. I think we can all kind of agree on the biggest needs for the Arizona Cardinals, which is good. Absolutely good. Let's talk about free agent targets. Now, I know, Mythic, you kind of already talked about that already. So let's start off here with Joe, but I will also give you a little bit of moment here, Mythic, to kind of chime in as well. So let's start off with Joe.
Do you want me to just go one at a time or give you my whole list?
Go give us a list.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are just some players I think would be good fits, interesting for some of the needs we've talked about. Jonah Williams, offensive tackle out of Cincinnati, or from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's played left and right tackle. Paris Johnson Jr., if they move him to left, you could play Jonah at right. If they want to keep him right, you can move him at left. So he has that versatility. He's not going to be cheap, but he's not going to be the top offensive tackle. So I think if you're looking to get that right tackle with that versatility, that'd be a good fit. Jonah Jackson, guard out of Detroit. Our assistant GM, Sears, right, was from Detroit, right? So there's some listen, when you're bringing a free agency, you want to know them. You want to have scouted them, talked to them, or preferably been in the building with them. So I think it's Dave Sears, our assistant GM we brought in from Detroit, will have had familiarity with him. So that could be a starting left guard with someone they're familiar with. Edge is a position we didn't talk about as a need. I think you can get that in a draft, but I think Josh Uche from New England is interesting. He's not been a frontline starter, but Monty Austin-Fort was in New England. He scouted him. He knows him. It seems like New England likes interesting big edge rushers who aren't 12, 15 sack guys, but are run stoppers, but kind of 7 or 8 sack guys, and which is what Zaven Collins was kind of like. So it feels like he might be a Zaven Collins who actually has been playing that position longer instead of just having been moved recently. And Monty will have had familiarity with him having been in New England. So that's interesting. Brandon Graham is another possibility because of just the familiar at Philly. I don't know if they go someone that old, but if they just want to bring in a guy who can get sacks and knows the system, who might be a little cheaper because he's older potentially. Defensive interior, Fletcher Cox, same deal, right, from Philadelphia. And then cornerback, I'd love to see them get someone like Tre'Davious White, but I wonder about Stephon Gilmore having, again, the New England connection, veteran, but he could come in, be a serviceable cornerback one, and, it might not be as expensive as someone like Tre'Davious White. So those are some of the names that stood out to me as I looked at free agents.
Yeah, I like it. Good list. All right, Mythic. Go.
Man. So obviously Christian Wilkins hitting the market is huge. One of the biggest free agents available right now. And the Cardinals have a desperate need at interior defensive linemen. And Christian Wilkins had one of his best seasons. It is a contract year, so maybe the stats are a bit inflated, if you even want to say that. But 9 sacks last season and a fantastic run defender. If the Cardinals can bring him in, that patches up a big hole. Maybe we draft another defensive tackle or bring someone else in, but we literally have nobody I'm comfortable rocking with. The Cardinals run defense has been terrible for the past 3 seasons. So bringing someone like that, obviously you're going to have to throw probably $20+ million to even bring him in. That takes up about 40% of your cap space, but I feel like it's worth it. And then I do love Stephon Gilmore. I've wanted Stephon Gilmore since 2021.
Yep.
Man, I wanted to trade for him, and he went for a 5th round pick or something like that. Just hurt my heart to see him go. And he would be cheaper than someone like Tre'Davious White, But Tre'Davious White is that other player as well. If we can just solidify it, cornerback 1, get a nice veteran to come in here, and we have someone like Garrett Williams too that he can help mentor as well. And there's flashes from Garrett Williams. His first game he got a pick, and then it kind of slowed down from there. But Garrett Williams is a super young player who's projected to go in the first round. The talent's there. It was been there in college. And then the other player, man, I don't even know. Kenny Moore is interesting to me as well, another corner, but that's kind of on the bottom tier for me.
Right.
And then I'd probably say Jonah Jackson as well from Detroit. I think Jonah Jackson would be the one to round everything off for me.
It's a good list. Well, very, very good list. Okay, so I'm gonna throw some names out here. And I get it. We don't have we have money, but we don't have a lot of money, and I get that. So I'm not saying we got to sign all the people, but I would love maybe one or two of these guys. I think you guys have a really, really good list. I didn't hear you guys mention Bryce Huff. I'm not sure if you guys are a big fan of him, but I really like him. I think he's a pretty good edge rusher here for. He was with the Jets, and I think he actually had a really good year. Now that it is kind of shaky a little bit because of the thought of a contract year. It kind of scares me as well, but 6'3", 255 pounds, had 10 sacks last year, 25 years old. Kind of feel like you got a guy at the prime there if the Arizona Cardinals could potentially go after that. An edge player, I feel like that would be really cool because I think we have edge potential on our team. We got some people on here like Victor Dimukeje. We got Cam Thomas, Zaven Collins, which I kind of feel like is still kind of an odd man out. I know they're forcing him to be edge, and I know he's had some flashes, but we don't have anybody that's like, yes, you are him, right? And we're all hoping that BJ Ojulari can progress into being good, right, in year 2, which I think me and Mythic here are very optimistic about. So Bryce Huff is a name that I would really, really like to see. Xavier Howard, I'm so curious about him. Now I get he's 30 years old. So he's up there in age. So I'm not looking for a multi-year deal, but if we're looking for a veteran that can do it and play quarterback, although yes, Stephon Gilmore is very, very intriguing as well because me and you, Mythic, are on the same boat. I did want to trade for him as well. And when I heard what he actually got traded for, that hurt my heart too as well. But Xavier Howard is very, very interesting to me. And then honestly, if I were to give a 1-year deal to a wide receiver, to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't pick Hollywood. I get why he would come because of Kyler and the system. He knows I get that. But I would rather throw the money over and maybe be a cheaper deal to maybe getting a Tyler Boyd on a 1-year deal, bringing him in. And I feel like that would be a really cool, segue. But it is going to be kind of confusing as well because I get it. I think we all want a wide receiver in the 4th overall spot if Marvin is there. But I don't know. If I were to throw money at a wide receiver, I would honestly rather throw it at Tyler Boyd than Hollywood. But I get Hollywood makes a lot more sense than Tyler Boyd would. Let's see here. And then, I'm going to steal one of yours, Mythic, as well. Wilkins, Christian Wilkins. Yeah, I agree with that. That would be huge, huge asset for the Cardinals, especially in the interior defensive line. So those are some names I want to kind of throw out. One more, Robert Hunt. I think he's also a the big thing on him is that he had a lot of injury concerns last year. A lot of injury concerns, especially with the hamstring. So that concerns me, but he's going to be a guy that's going to be very, very lucrative in the whole guard position. So just some names to throw out there, right, Monty? If you're watching, maybe give us 1 or 2 bones.
He needs our advice.
That'll be kind of exciting. But other than that, it's going to be really, really exciting here for the Cardinals and just Cardinals fans is that we're all hoping to be able to spend some money here in free agency. So let me ask you this before we move on to expectations, Joe. Let me ask you, DJ Humphries. What do you think is going to happen with DJ Humphries?
I think they're going to end up cutting him.
Yeah?
Yeah, I just think that, he, not that they need the cap space, but I with the injury, and I don't know I don't know if they have to do an injury settlement or if they can just cut him. There's some rules about that, but that late in the season injury, I don't know that he's going to be ready. Anytime near the beginning of the season. He's on a big contract. He's older. They drafted with the 6th pick overall a tackle. You don't draft someone that high to play right tackle.
I agree with you. 100%.
And you can get a right tackle in free agency or on day 2 or 3 of the draft. And Monty Ossenfort, and I talked about this in one of my videos from New England, has a lot of success. They had a lot of success identifying offensive linemen all throughout the draft. He knows how to find a starting right tackle in the 4th, 5th, or 6th round if he needs to. And I think when you're dealing with the salary cap and those resources, you're trying to be judicious about where you spend that money, and having an injured older tackle when you've got a ascending left tackle just doesn't make sense.
Okay. One person. Sorry, I know it's one more person. But okay. I'm also going to Zaven Collins. 5th-year option, yes or no? Yeah.
Yes.
No. I love Zaven Collins. I wish they had kept him at Mike. I guess in their system they like a different profile for Mike linebacker, but you don't the amount of money that 5th-year option is not insignificant. They're not going to pay him that much. They might try to bring him back on less, but I unfortunately think it's more likely he goes somewhere else when his contract's up.
Yeah, we're seeing some June post June 1st cuts already, so it would make sense if the Cardinals to do something like that, because there are some really, really good tackles in this draft, which can be a very well, especially if we don't get Marvin Harrison Jr. Actually, let me ask you that before we go into 2024 expectations, are you kind of in the same boat as well, where if Marvin is there at 4, you get him, Joe?
If he's there, there's no one I'm taking ahead of him. I don't mind trading back and getting Rome Odunze if you want, because I like him a lot.
Right.
I'm not saying he's better than Marvin Harrison Jr., but like if we came out with him and then traded back and got some picks that get us some other starters, I would be very happy with that too. But there's no one I'm taking ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4.
If he's there, 100% agree. So me and you are in that kind of the same boat where I believe when me and Mythic were jumping on a podcast about a month ago, I told him Roman Dunze is a name you should definitely be looking out for. And I think he's definitely got the hype around him as well. And I think that would be a really cool pickup for the Cardinals if Marvin is not there. Yeah, for sure. So that would be a trade back option. But you also kind of you're playing with fire a little bit, because he's projected to go 9, 8, somewhere in the top 10. So maybe Monty can cook and, go out and then come back in. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see. Do you like Rome Odunze over Malik Neighbors?
Yeah, I do, for a couple of reasons. He's taller, and I think what they want is a bigger receiver. And I think there's maybe been a little bit off the field questions with Neighbors, but I think the big target for Kyler is really what they want to get.
It's important to me. I think it's very, very important. Mythic, I'm going to let you chime in on this as well. The question goes to you as well: Neighbors or Rome Odunze?
I think in terms of talent, Neighbors has a slight edge, but in terms of what Monty would go for, just in terms of off the field issues and everything, like, he makes it very clear that there's no ego in this locker room. There's no nothing. So if there's any of that, he's not going to bring a player in that he think isn't a culture fit, which is a big thing. Like DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, he cut him in his first year. He traded Isaiah Simmons for a 7th-round pick. Like, he's establishing what he wants, right? And I don't think Malik Neighbors necessarily fits that. And Rome Odunze, you heard nothing but high positive things about his character, and the on-field performance is right up there with all that. So I think it would go Marvin Harrison Jr. because, again, he does have fantastic character. That's what everybody says. Son of a Hall of Fame wide receiver, very respectful. And Rome Odunze is just like that. So if we can snag him at I don't know. If we can trade back and land him at 7, 8, 9, I'm all for that, but Marvin Harrison is just that guy for me. So if he's not there at 4, I'm going to be a little killed inside. But if we can land Rome Odunze, then I'll be okay.
It's the creme de la creme. I think we can all kind of agree that, when we're thinking about Marvin is here. And then I honestly, I like Rome Odunze a lot. I do. It's just, there's a gap. There's a gap between who I really, really want and then who I want. You know what I mean? I know that's kind of the same thing, but I really, really want Marvin, but I will be okay with trading back and still getting Rome, because I don't think we're going to get him at 4. I just don't think that's going to get a realistic.
It's a little bit of a reach.
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, perfect. Let's move on to the last topic. Let's go with 2024 expectations, and let's do something different. Let me start up here, and then we'll go with Joe, and then we'll end up here with Mythic. So 2024 expectations here for the Arizona Cardinals, or at least for me as a fan. I want to be I kind of tussle a lot with this. I want to be competitive to the point where we're making a big jump from last year. And I know that anything is a big jump from 4 wins. But I want to see us being close to playoffs or sniffing playoffs. I want to talk about week 16, week 17, and we're in contention of, oh, the Arizona Cardinals need to do this, or this is the domino to fall for the Arizona Cardinals to potentially get into the playoffs. That's what I'm looking for the Arizona Cardinals in 2024. We got our franchise quarterback in Kyler Murray. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he's going to be playing a full, healthy season. We got him from the beginning of the season. We don't have to worry about, 8 games, right? Blah, blah, blah. We have him for the full season, and I really want the Arizona Cardinals to make a huge jump. This is the year that we got the draft capital for days, 13 picks total. We got a lot of picks in the top 100. Kyler Murray needs the weapons. All right, perfect. Let's get this going. We can do this, and that. We got free agency money. I'm looking for nothing more than 7, even 8 wins for the Arizona Cardinals, especially because we got a franchise quarterback back. That's what I'm looking for in 2024. I'm not accepting 5 wins. I'm not accepting it. I want to see Kyler Murray take that next step, and then hopefully hit the playoffs. What are your thoughts on this, Joe?
I'm probably in a similar place. So I'm really fascinated by roster building and the whole process of that and how you approach that. And there's a lot of great places to get information on that. And I think when you look at the Detroit Lions, they really illustrated the template for what a rebuild is supposed to look like. And it's a 3-year process. Year 1, you're clearing the decks of players from the old regime who don't fit, who aren't culture fits or system fits. And you're kind of getting rookies in. You're trying to you bring in judiciously free agents who are going to help implement the system, but aren't necessarily big dollar guys, which like what we did with Froholt, right? A center from Cleveland, which was Petzing's system, right? Guys like that. And your first year, you expect to take your lumps, but you want to be frisky and competitive, right? And the Lions were that way. Their first year, they weren't good, but they were gritty, right? Which is, obviously they talked about grit as their thing. Year 2 of that rebuild process, you want to see marked improvements and you want to be sniffing the playoffs. You might not make it, but you want to be a team that towards the end is at least in the conversation for that wild card hunt. That's kind of the trajectory you would expect. Now, if you can exceed that, that's great. But the realistic process is that's year when some of the rookies you got the year before are starting to come into their own. You've put in a few additional free agents. You've got another draft class, and the players know the system, right? It's been installed. Year 3 is when you want to start your contention window. And obviously the Lions ace that, right? We saw what they did, in terms of that. So that's the template, right? That's the template for a rebuild in the NFL, what it typically realistically should be looking like if you get it right. So this is year 2 for the Cardinals. Well, what is that? That is sniffing wild card, but maybe it's not realistic to expect that they've got to make the playoffs. But you want them to be competitive, winning like you talked about, 7-8 games, enough that they're in that conversation. Now, I think they have higher expectations.
Hope so.
Yeah, right. And I think they're going to approach it like they want to make the playoffs this year. But I think what you talked about is very similar to kind of how I view the expectations for this year in that process.
Perfect. Okay, so let's go with Mythic, just to be mindful of his time, and then because I got a couple questions for you to kind of chop up, Joe, if you don't mind. So Mythic, go ahead.
I feel like this season, like Mike, we've been talking about it, like the Detroit Lions rebuild was executed so perfect and they just did it right. Even dating back to the hiring of Dan Campbell and just seeing the way they played for their head coach and the fact that they were just playing with toughness. A lot of things that people were saying about the Arizona Cardinals this year, right? They're like, this isn't the same team that we saw last year. Like they were all like the pretty football and the spread offense and they don't want to get hit. They're like, this team came in with aggression and just brought it to us. And like the 49ers gave us respect after the game, which is weird, right? When you get a division rival that comes out and is willing to talk crap about anybody and anybody, like Jalen Hurts, like Nick Bosa came out and said, yeah, we know what we're doing. We got this. Don't worry about it. He's contained. We make him a passer. When the Cardinals, he's like, yeah, Kyler Murray, fantastic football player. And it's insanely impossible to guard someone of his caliber. And they played completely different. Like those are the things you love to see and hear. So going into year 2, I think a lot of it does have to do with how this roster is constructed and what holes we address and what positions we actually fill, right? Because we have a ton of money. And if we're willing to go out there and spend it, I think we can legitimately crack the 8 to 9 win mark. which in year 2 would be fantastic. But I'm not going to push my expectations there yet because that's how you get let down. But I think we have all the assets to do that. And we have the number 4 pick and another first-round pick from Houston, which it does suck the fact that it landed so late in the draft because the Texans go on this insane season where they were projected to be a top 3 worst team in the league. Ended up at pick 27. So it sucks, but that is another first-round player we're bringing to this team. So there's no complaints on my end. Fantastic trade back last year. And with the weak NFC, I think the NFC is getting weak at the right time. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to lose a bunch of their players that they've had for years. There's going to be Brandon Graham. There's going to be Jason Kelce, who they just lost. Fletcher Cox, to be determined. There's a lot of these key franchise players that aren't going to be on their team for much longer.
Yeah.
And I feel like the NFC is getting weak at the right time. And the Arizona Cardinals, if they just keep at this and keep rebuilding through the draft and keep bringing in these key free agents, I think there is a chance we make the playoffs this year. And this is the best time. And Monty Ossenfort has constructed this the right way. And I love what we're doing. I love it, love it, love it. And I think playoffs are a realistic expectation this season, but I'm not gonna push that yet because, again, that's how you get let down. So
absolutely. All right, Mythic, I'll let you go, man. Have a great rest of your day, brother. Later, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys.
All right, let's stick the conversation here. Me and you, Joe. Okay.
All right. It's good to be back with you, Mike, by the way.
No, absolutely. Me too, man. I agree. Appreciate you for being on here. I don't know. So last year was rough. I think we could both agree that, 2 4-win seasons is absolutely rough. And I'm pretty sure you heard the Kyler Murray chatter. And me and Mythic had a lot of conversations back and forth about Kyler Murray. Do you see a world where if the Arizona Cardinals aren't good, let's scratch that. Where do you stand on Kyler Murray?
I've been a Kyler Murray defender the whole time through.
Okay.
Like everyone else here, I've watched every game. I see the arm talent. There's only a handful. I think there's 10 to 15 guys in the NFL that can make all the throws the way he can make them. Like he has that elite arm in terms of making the on a rope, the deep throws. He can make those accurate deep throws. Yes, there's some inconsistency at times, but he has the arm talent and the leg talent. He's on a very short list, right? True. But I don't think there's really anyone else who has that same combination. Lamar, I don't think has quite the same arm talent as Kyler. The results are better. Don't get me wrong. Right. And he's arguably a better runner, but Kyler has that. And if you get him the right system and you get the right stability around him in the organization, which hopefully we're getting that with, JG and Monty, I think he can be that guy. Right. And I think that all the discussion about his personality, I think, has been overblown. I teach college students, and he's just a little aloof, but he's not any different than the kids I work with every day. And he's not a bad dude. He's not getting into trouble. Maybe he's a little aloof, but whatever. And maybe he needed to mature a little bit. Who didn't at that age? But I'll take the guy who maybe needs to mature a little bit, but works hard over the guy who's not taking it serious, a la a Jamarcus Russell, back in the day. Right. Right. So I believe in the talent. I believe he's competitive, and this organization's bought into him, and he's bought into the coaching staff. So I was defending him the whole way through, and I continue to be a believer in Kyler.
I agree. One thing I would say about Kyler Murray is that this year is a different Kyler Murray. And I mean, personality wise, the maturity level complete. And I'm not sure if it's because of the new regime. I mean, yeah, it probably is. It probably is Jonathan Gannon. That really kind of sat him down and said, hey, this is the way it's going to be running. I don't see Kyler Murray yelling at Jonathan Gannon like he used to yell at Cliff Kingsbury, right? That type of stuff, those antics where it kind of gave him a bad name. But honestly, Kyler Murray looks happy. He looks happy that this Arizona Cardinal organization is backing him. And they're not doing it to where that whole Josh Rosen thing. Well, he's the guy. This is the guy. Me and Mythic actually ended up going to an event where they were trying to get season ticket holder people to sign up. So there was an exclusive talk between Monty and JG, and nothing but wonderful things have been said about Kyler. And I truly do believe him at the end of the day. But I think there is going to be a situation because this last year, man, the noise was getting loud, especially if the Cardinals were going to be picking anywhere in the top 2. And that's something that I was trying to avoid. I was like, no, y'all, you do not want to be in the top 2 because look at what Chicago's doing. They are imploding right now. The fan base this is a civil war going on. It's a civil war going on between Caleb Williams and Justin Fields. It's crazy to see it. And I remember 2019. It was so stressful to have that number 1 overall pick. So stressful. Now, granted, I think the Arizona Cardinals have the best of both worlds because we still got a top 5 pick, and then we have our quarterback. We got a franchise quarterback heading into 2024. And like I said, if he could stay healthy, fingers crossed, I think we can actually make some damage, right? I think we can make a big jump. But man, were you hearing the same things in terms of like on your side of it all with the whole Kyler Murray? Like, are we going to move off of him? Should we move off of him? All this different kind of topics. Were you hearing the same thing on your side?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I have a Discord server where a lot of Cardinals fans kind of get in there and talk all the time. And then, and like you, I get the comments on the videos so we both get that pulse, right?
Yeah.
Our thumb on the pulse of hearing what Cardinals fans see. It's funny. I'm sure you saw the same thing. The debate 6 months and a year ago was Caleb Williams or Kyler. Now it's Marvin Harris Jr. or anyone else, right? And I'm actually relieved, or it's refreshing that the discourse has moved away from Kyler or Caleb to, is it Marvin Harrison Jr. or bust, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was in fact, I think in my Discord channel, we set up a separate channel just for Caleb Williams degenerate talks. I think I call it Caleb Williams. Just like if you want to talk Caleb Williams, you go into that channel and talk, because we're not having that here. But like, no, that was the discourse. That was the conversation for so long. And I was steadfast defending Kyler and in the comments and heard it all the time. And you know, I like to think that we're coming out the other end of that, and people are starting to see. And I want to speak real quick. You talked about the coaching staff and Kyler. You know, there was this. You may have. Did you see the Johnny Football documentary? That the Johnny Manziel documentary.
Yes, I did actually. Yep,
I watched it too, and there were interviews with Cliff, right? And that was what was interesting. And what you really came away from with that is that Cliff really is very permissive. He allows things, like he's really, you know, players coach to the extreme, lets things go. And how much I wonder of what was really going on with Kyler was him frustrated at the kind of the permissive, lackadaisical kind of approach towards discipline from Cliff. And Kyler's such even the people who have been critical of Kyler said he's a fiery competitor. He doesn't like losing. He's not used to losing. And you've heard people say he likes to be coached hard. And I have to wonder if Cliff's sort of lackadaisical, kind of hands-off, laissez-faire is probably the word, approach towards coaching actually didn't resonate with Kyler enough. And one of the differences we're seeing with him is he's actually just really much happier with a coach that has expectations, not just for him, but for everyone, and that there's more structure and discipline. So that's what I'm hoping is one of the biggest differences we're seeing in Kyler, and why he is on board with his coaching staff is because they're coaching him the way he wants to be coached, with expectations.
It's crazy. It is. That's funny that you guys had a separate Discord, because it was loud, man. It was. It's crazy to see the different worlds that we're living in right now. And right now, I'm so glad that we're not even talking about quarterback, because we would be in a civil war right now with our fan base.
Yeah.
It's wild. But I agree. I think that Jonathan Gannon and Kyler Murray have a really good relationship with each other. And that's one thing. Like, and I'm not putting this all on Cliff. I don't think the downfall of the Arizona Cardinals was just Cliff Kingsbury. I think it was a lot of things. It was a lot of the off the field antics with Steve Keim, a lot of weird things that were happening in Mexico, right? In identity. It's just weird, man. There's a lot of weird things that happen. And I'm hoping that with Monty, we can really focus on what matters, and it's football, right? Winning football games, and all the other stuff can hopefully get out of the wayside and not worry about that. And I'm hoping that with structure, Kyler Murray can blossom into becoming what we all hope he can become. That's a Super Bowl champion, quarterback, and that's what we're all hoping for. But yeah, he's 26 years old. He's going to be 27 this year, and the thing, a lot of people kind of forget, especially if you don't spend time like you do within that age group, where there's some people that are just odd. Like, it's just the way it is. I mean, that's just the way it is. But Kyler Murray, his personality, I would rather him play games than being like DUI, go clubbing and stuff like that. Like, let's be honest, like the alternative is bad. You know what I mean? I would rather him be a
Call of Duty all day on his free
yeah.
time, right?
Absolutely. Obviously, winning games is the most important thing. But to be honest with you, I have no problem with his personal life. I don't care. I know a lot of people make comments and jokes and stuff. I really don't care about it. But I'm glad that we're kind of out of it, and I'm glad that we're focusing on 2024 because second year of Jonathan Gannon, I'm excited about. One question, and I'll let you go. I promise. I know I kept saying that. How do you feel about our coordinators? Defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator?
I feel really good about Nick Rallis. And coming in, people talked about him as just this really great up and coming mind. I know the defense wasn't great, but I think a lot of that was personnel. Maybe some of it was Rallis being his first coordinator gig. But I'm just a believer in if you got smart people in the right places, they'll figure it out. There's kind of this philosophy from a well-known book about getting the right people on the bus. Get the right people on the bus. That's kind of this business philosophy. And you get the right people in the house in your business, get the right people on the bus, and they'll figure it out. And he was a guy that people saw as an up and coming defensive coordinator, very smart. So I really like him. I think he's going to continue to grow and develop. Petzing I like as well. I know it, again, it's up and down, but first year coordinators always, in a new team, new system, that's a little bit tricky, but he's smart. He comes from the Shanahan tree, so to speak, right? Which is a really effective offense in the system in the NFL, right? So, in general, I feel good about the coordinators. I want to see them develop, and I want to see the results being better as the personnel gets better and as they have another year with everyone knowing the system. But in general, I'm happy with who we have at the moment.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I got no complaints either. I want to see them obviously with the year of expectations is different, right? And a lot of us didn't have expectations last year. We're cool in terms of us as long as we're in games and we're competitive, which we were in a lot of these games, especially, and we beat some playoff teams. So I think for casual fans, we exceeded what people thought. So next year, with this year right here in 2024, we got expectations. So we'll see. I do like them right now. I want to see them take the next step in development and obviously build up that offense and build up the defense in the eyes of Monty Austinfort. So super excited. Joe, thank you again for tuning in, and I absolutely do appreciate it. Hopefully we can do this more as the season goes on. We got free agency coming our way. We got the draft coming our way. What are you more excited about, draft or free agency? Be honest with me.
I'm always the draft. Draft is my Christmas. I love the draft. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. Well, we got a lot of news coming our way. If you guys do not know Joe, the Cardinal Rule, check him out here on YouTube. You want to go ahead and shout out your other socials? Please do.
Yeah, check me out on Twitter, Jokomo13. That's linked down there. Obviously, the Cardinal Rule, and I do mock draft Mondays. Check it out live or afterwards. If you want to get on it, there's instructions. You can submit a mock draft, and I'll review it, talk about it. So it's a good way to learn about the prospects in this draft class. We do that every Monday at 7 o'clock Arizona time between now and the draft.
All right, Joe. Appreciate you as always. Everybody in the chat, thank you so very much. Have a great rest of your day as always. Go Cards. Later, guys.